Diabetes Connections is brought to you by the One Touch brand, providing diabetes management solutions for people living with diabetes, including the One Touch VarioFlex blood glucose meter and the One Touch Reveal mobile app. Taking a step forward starts with seeing where you are. And by Dexcom. Take control of your diabetes with the world's first continuous glucose monitoring system that sends glucose readings directly to your compatible smart device. Live life on your own terms with Dexcom. Hey, it's Stacey. This podcast is not intended as medical advice. You know that. I'm not a doctor. If you have those kinds of questions, please contact your healthcare provider.
This is Diabetes Connections with Stacey Sims.
This week, diagnosed on Halloween, spending the night in the hospital instead of trick-or-treating. But Kelly Kunik was determined that Halloween, 40 years ago, was the last one she'd miss.
The rule was, like every other kid, I will give that credit to my parents. I never missed a Halloween. I went out with my pillowcase because that held more. And we trick-or-treated for hours. I would eat some candy while I was trick-or-treating because we were walking like 3 miles. And then I came home, went to the living room, dumped the pillowcase on the floor, did the division like all the kids do.
Kelly is a blogger, advocate, and Halloween aficionado, I found out. She shares her family's story. Quite a few people in her family have type 1 and gives great advice for all of us. Plus, Shoptalk with 2 companies trying to make diabetes look better. Myabetic and Pocket Innerwear. It all starts now on Diabetes Connections. Welcome to another week of the show. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. Thrilled that you found us. Here on Diabetes Connections, we aim to educate and inspire by sharing stories of connections from celebrities and athletes in our circles to the healthcare companies, the tech folks that push us ahead, and to the everyday people living with type 1. I am a mom of a kiddo with type 1. My son Benny was diagnosed just before he turned 2. He is almost 13. So we've been living with this nonsense for 11 years, almost. My husband has type 2. I have a broadcasting background, and that's how you get the podcast. So we're talking about Halloween this week. This episode is being released right on Halloween, October 31st, 2017. So I thought it would be really fun to talk about Halloween and give you the perspective of somebody who was diagnosed on Halloween, because it's a stressful holiday for a lot of parents. There's candy. Your kid might not be as closely supervised as they are. Little kids want to run around. Are they going to go high or low? But Kelly's story really gives us perspective, and I'm thrilled to share that with you. When Benny was younger, so he was diagnosed right before he turned 2 in December. So we didn't worry about Halloween until he was almost 3, and we'd been living with diabetes for almost a year at that point, which is still very early on, but you definitely, we had our feet under us. And I don't remember the candy being that much of a problem, because I'm the kind of parent that I'm not super strict, but I'm certainly not giving my toddler tons of candy. So I think the first year or 2 we traded in. And I did the same thing with my daughter. Benny has a sister who's 3 years older. So we traded in a lot of the candy for little Play-Doh toys and things like that, which kept everybody happy. And as he got older, we would talk to them about it. Like, do you want to keep the candy and have 2 or 3 a night? Like little teeny, 15 carbs worth of candy, and then it would kind of disappear. I like to think we'd handle it the same way as we would have without diabetes. We're pretty much a dessert a couple of times a week, not a lot of junky snacks kind of family. So we would save the candy for the dessert nights, as the kids call them. And then, of course, there's always the parent tax. You got to take the candy you like right off the top. And then after a week or 2, we, like most people, we get rid of the candy. But what I really remember about diabetes when Benny was little was not so much the candy, it was the costumes. The first pump that we used, we got when Benny was 2.5, was the Animus 2020. This was before the Ping came out. And so it didn't have a remote. The 2020 was a pump with no remote meter. And his costumes were always the kind where it was like a full body, or you couldn't get near to. I just remember one year he went as Iron Man. And I was so frustrated. I was like, I am poking a hole in Iron Man just so I can put the pump through. But then where do you clip it? And he was so upset. I was like, fine. But, so I'm feeling the pump through The costume, it did not work. It was a mess, but he looked great. And I have some really cute pictures from that year. Very happy when we got the ping. It certainly made Halloween easier. And of course, Animus, I'm going to miss that pump. But maybe let's post some Halloween pictures. I'll put that up on the Facebook page. It'll be fun to see everybody's kids. I'm one of those people. I love to see everybody's Halloween costumes. Everybody always looks so cute. And there's always some great family costumes. We've never been able to get it together for that. All right, lots more about Halloween coming up. But first, let me tell you about One Touch, one of our sponsors, and One Touch has been a trusted brand in blood glucose management for more than 30 years. This year, U.S. News and World Report named One Touch the #1 pharmacist recommended in blood glucose monitoring devices and Lancets based on a survey of pharmacists nationwide. Find out more about One Touch brand products at diabetes-connections.com and click on the One Touch logo. As this episode is released, the last day of October, Halloween, well, that means November starts tomorrow. And November is Diabetes Awareness Month. It'll be business as usual around here. Every month is Diabetes Awareness Month, every week around here on Diabetes Connections. But I will be highlighting what many other people are doing in the space on my public page, the one I had when I was on the radio and TV here in Charlotte. I always highlight local kids and adults. So Stacey Sims, it's the one that looks like a dopey anchor person, not a real picture, but one of those, hey, hi, polished pictures. So that's me on Facebook. And also keep your eyes out from something really cool from Dexcom. We will be on social media talking about that and hopefully participating in that as well. But my lips are sealed until November 1st. What are you doing for Diabetes Awareness Month? Let me know. Drop me a line over social media or here at Stacey at diabetes-connections.com. Love to highlight efforts your groups are doing, or, maybe your kid's doing something at school. Maybe you're doing something online. We'll get the message out. Just drop me a line and let me know. I mentioned Dexcom a second ago, another of our great sponsors. And when Benny was younger, he was totally out there sharing about his diabetes. He didn't mind checking or dosing in class or during sports, whatever. But like a lot of middle school kids, he's getting more private. And I was surprised to see how much the Dexcom helps with that. Being able to discreetly check the display on his smart device or the Dexcom receiver is a lot less cumbersome than getting out all the gear to fingerstick. The Dexcom G5 Mobile Continuous Glucose Monitoring System is the first FDA-approved device to let you make treatment decisions without pricking your finger. CGM-based treatment requires finger sticks for calibration, may result in hypoglycemia if calibration not performed or symptoms expectations do not match CGM readings. For more information, go to Dexcom.com. My guest today is known for her gift of humor, her gift of writing, and her gift of advocacy. Kelly Kunik is the author of Diabetesaliciousness. We will talk about the blog and how it got that name. Kelly, as she shares, has a lot of people with type 1 in her family. 2 sisters, her father, 2 aunts, a cousin, her nephew, her mother has type 2 diabetes. She lost her sister Debbie, who died of diabetes complications in 1991. And Kelly has a perspective that I think is really unique. Not only has she lived with type 1 for 40 years today, wow, but she has seen it in her family. She's seen it back in the day when her father was, using test tubes in the bathroom, and she's seen it to the modern times now. And unfortunately, as people in her family, her nephew, continue to be diagnosed. So Kelly has a big voice and she's not afraid to use it. I was thrilled to talk to her. I knew she'd been diagnosed on Halloween, but I'd never heard the story. Kelly's one of the first bloggers I found when Benny was diagnosed. So we're going to talk about all of it. Halloween, 40 years, growing up in a family with type 1, and what she hopes comes next. So here's my talk with Kelly Kunik. Kelly, thanks for joining me. One of the things I get a lot in parenting groups that I'm in is, what do I do about Halloween? And so we're going to be talking about that this week. But I thought it would be really fun, and it's just a good excuse to talk to you, to find out more about being diagnosed on Halloween. I shouldn't have said it'll be fun. It's always fun to talk to you, Kelly, but that's not fun at all. Thanks for coming on with me.
Well, thank you for having, and thank you for doing what you do. And I think Halloween's an excellent topic.
Yeah. Tell us your story. You were diagnosed. And I can't believe as we're talking here, you're coming up on 40 years for your diagnosis.
Yes. Yes, I am. and that's crazy, and I can't believe it, and I'm just as shocked as you are. But yes, it will be 40 years with, celebrating my type 1 diabetes diagnosis on Halloween, and it was interesting, and I remember a lot of it.
Yeah, tell us.
I just remember a lot of whispering that week with my parents and my siblings. I have siblings who also have type 1, and my dad had type 1. And, Halloween every year was a pretty big deal in our house. And it was up to my siblings to come up with my Halloween costume or help me come up with it because there were so many of us. And I couldn't get them to commit. And I remember coming home from school one day, and my sister Debbie, who had diabetes and who passed away from diabetes, met me at the door, and she asked me if I was thirsty. And I was, of course. And she gave me a tab, and I downed it. And then she asked me if I wanted another one, which of course I did, and I downed it. And then she asked me if I wanted another one.
And we're talking about Tab, the diet soda, because just to be clear, right? I mean,
right.
I hate to have to clarify that, Tab.
Right, Tab, the diet soda. And I drank the third one, and then of course I had to go to the bathroom. And she said, well, I'm not going to let you go to the bathroom unless you pee on this test tape, which was a way back in the late 70s to test what your sugar was. And I was smart enough to know that that wasn't a good thing because there was test tape in all of our bathrooms because of my two sisters with type 1 and my father. And I looked at my sister and I told her I didn't have to go to the bathroom.
Oh, geez.
And I was a pretty stubborn little girl, and I refused to go to the bathroom for like an hour. And I was dying at that point. Like I literally was doubled over in pain, but I knew that something was up and that if I peed on that test tape, something was going to happen that I didn't want. And I finally, I did. I said I would do it, and it turned a color it shouldn't have. And there were lots of whispers. And I remember my parents being on the phone with CHOP, Children's Hospital of Pennsylvania, that night. And it was the night before Halloween. And I don't really remember a lot, but I remember the next morning we got up very early and we drove to Philadelphia to CHOP. And I remember waiting in the registration office to register as a patient because we'd never been to CHOP before. And then the physical exam. And I remember them hooking me up with an insulin drip. And I was trying to make my parents laugh, so I called it the Alaskan pipeline. I'm like, look, Mom, it's the Alaskan pipeline. Look at me. I have my own Alaskan pipeline. But I really wanted to go out trick-or-treating. I wanted to go out in costumes. There had been talk of all these different costumes I could wear. And I loved Halloween, not just because of the candy, but I loved dressing up in costumes. That was kind of my thing. As a kid, I was always dressing up in costumes. Like if I could have gone to school in a cape, I would have. But back in the 70s, it wasn't really acceptable. I was constantly dressing up in costumes. And I tried to convince a nurse who was dressed like a clown that the results were inconclusive. Again, I watched a lot of television. And
wait a minute, you're 8 years old and you're trying to tell that the medical professionals around you,
because
maybe it's not,
Well, I used to watch Quincy. It was on after Carol Burnett.
Yes, Quincy.
And so I would just like repeat everything that Quincy would say. And I'd be like, I think the tests are inconclusive. And if you just let me go out trick-or-treating, I promise you, I won't eat any candy. And my parents will bring me back tomorrow. Oh. But I have all these costumes lined up. And she looked at me and she just said, oh, honey, the tests aren't inconclusive. You have diabetes. And no one had said that. And I said, oh, okay. I guess I have diabetes. Like, okay. And I think that's when I started not to like clowns so much. Yeah. And I remember them telling me that I could go trick-or-treating in the hospital, that they could provide me with a costume, which was subpar. There was no way I was walking around in those costumes. They had no creativity behind them at all. And then I could only get dietetic
Oy.
candy. And I was like, nope, no thank you, not doing that. I know what that is because of my sisters. There's no way. I know what that does to your stomach. I know that what it does to your teeth. I'm not doing it. And so I stayed in and watched TV, and kind of waited till my parents left to lose it a little bit because I didn't want them to get upset. I could tell that they were upset, and I didn't want them to get any more upset.
Kelly, there's so much to talk about that you've said already here, but it strikes me now, you've said a couple of times that you're trying not to upset your parents. You were 8 years old at the time, your perspective is different. It's, your dad had type 1, you had other people in your family, sisters, other people in your extended family. Why was it so important to you? Do you remember? It's just amazing how we try to protect the people around us. They didn't need protecting. You did. You were the little kid.
I think I knew from a very early age. I was one of 6 children. It was not necessarily a calm household. There were 6 kids. There were 2 parents. There were various extended family, grandmothers, great uncles living with us, which was wonderful. It was a great way to grow up. But I knew that diabetes, I didn't know exactly what it was, but I grew up with it, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. And I knew there was a stress level involved with it. Even though I didn't understand it, I knew that some of my siblings and my dad would take needles at the table before they ate. I knew that our bathrooms were sort of set up like a lab with test tubes and things like that because they didn't test blood sugar back then. They tested urine. I knew insulin was very, very precious and a bit expensive. And I just knew that I liked to make people laugh when they were stressed. And I think when you're the youngest child, diabetes or not, that's kind of the thing. You just sort of become the comic because everybody's watching what you do. You're the youngest. You're the baby. Oh, isn't that cute? She's so funny. And I knew I couldn't articulate it and I couldn't explain it, but I knew that it was big for my parents, this diagnosis or whatever was going on, because I couldn't even articulate it like I am now. But I knew they were sad and they were trying to act like they weren't. You know what I mean? And I knew that for a fact. So I was trying to make it easier for them. And look, kids are smart. They just are. And they see and they handle things in certain ways. And, when you see your dad who's, trying to keep it together, you want to make it easy for him, especially when it has to do with you.
It's amazing to me that, and you're right, kids know they are much smarter than I think we give them credit for. And even Benny at 2 was trying to make me feel better. It's hard to see your parent be upset. And that's a kid wants to fix that most of the time. So even
they do. And that's what it is.
Yeah. So what happened on that Halloween?
I stayed in and watched TV. I mean, I wasn't going to go out trick-or-treating in the hospital if I had to have they called it dietetic candy when I was growing up.
Dietetic.
It's what it was called, and it was disgusting, and it caused a lot of gastrointestinal distress. And they had something like a Jolly Rancher type of dietetic candy that would make your teeth stick together.
Oh, jeez.
For 5 minutes while it melted in your mouth. You could not separate your jaw. And I'm not kidding. It's God's truth. And it just wasn't worth it to me. I had tried this stuff because my sisters would get it in their Easter baskets or, family friends would bring it over for them. And it was disgusting. And, when you're little, you don't know the difference and you're like, ooh, chocolate.
Right.
And it really did cause a lot of problems. And I knew that. So you learned it very young.
Yeah.
I didn't even have diabetes. Learned it. And I was like, that is not good stuff. So I was like, I don't have my costume choices with me. I'm not wearing these drugstore costumes. I have closets full of homemade costumes that are very good. And I'm not trick-or-treating and working so hard for this disgusting candy.
I love it. Was Halloween ruined for you, or the following year did you dig out one of those costumes and head back out?
Oh God, I never missed a Halloween growing up. The rule was like every other kid. I will give that credit to my parents. I never missed a Halloween. I went out with my pillowcase because that held more. And we trick-or-treated for hours. I would eat some candy while I was trick-or-treating because we were walking like 3 miles. And then I came home, went to the living room, dumped the pillowcase on the floor, did the division like all the kids do. Mm-hmm. Candy they like, candy they don't like, candy they would consider trading, money, because people would throw in nickels and quarters, boxes of raisins, which immediately hit the trash. And my mom would, it was like any other thing. And my mom would say, okay, what's the candy you want to keep? And she would keep it. And we would figure it out, like when I could have it. And then in a week or two, somehow that Halloween candy would disappear. Sometimes my mother would hide it after a few weeks in the top of her closet or on top of the china cabinet, which kind of dipped in so you couldn't see what was laying on top. Right. She would put it. Or those cabinets on top of the refrigerator that hold nothing and are really hard to get to. But after a few weeks, it just would slowly disappear, and she'd say, oh, your siblings ate it. Daddy must have gotten into it. My mother was a chocoholic. But we always had fun. I always went out with my friends. Great. And I give my parents a lot. I remember going to like a Halloween party somewhere, maybe in 4th grade. I don't remember, but there was a cake. I think my mom even brought it. I think my mom brought a cake with ghosts on it. And that was a big deal. And the ghosts were made out of icing, like with toothpicks. And I remember like, I want one of the ghosts, but they didn't say I couldn't. And that was really smart of them. They didn't make it a bad day. They made it a fun day. It was a fun day. Halloween's fun. They kept it that way.
That's wonderful. It's just so great to hear. Did you have a favorite costume over all those years?
Oh, I had stuff that, oh my God, are you kidding me? I was a gypsy, which was actually my mother's costume from a Gilbert and Sullivan.
Oh, gosh.
She was an orator in England. So I had this beautiful, like, corseted top that all the girls wore in my family. And I was a gypsy, and I had a scarf and a big skirt. I was Tiger Lily for like 2 years in a row, 3 years in a row maybe, because I was obsessed with Tiger Lily. I did not like Wendy Darling. I could not relate. I thought Wendy Darling was a whiner. I thought Tiger Lily was a badass, and she kind of looked like me a little bit. She had long, dark braids, and I had long, dark braids. Like, she's who I related to, and I was her for 2, maybe 3 years. I was a Jack in the Box one year. I won an award for that.
Cool.
Most creative costume. Yeah, I loved Halloween. I think it's I still think it's a great holiday. So I don't, and I don't like when people, and I understand why they say it. I shouldn't say I don't like, but I always tell people to mind their words when it comes to diabetes. Like, don't let your kids know that you're dreading it, because it really is a fun holiday. Look, it's great not to be you for a night. You know what I mean? Yeah. Diabetes or not. Yeah. Like, it's going to be a challenge, but today they give away much more, prize-related gifts today than they ever did when I was growing up. And look, we are blessed that we can count carbs today. Nothing is off limits.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's go on. Let's just, we'll get on the soapbox for a minute, because Kelly, people who know you,
sure,
you have opinions. Opinions are welcome. I have a radio friend who says agreement is not required. So let's just talk about it. And you can say whatever you want here, because as a parent of a kid with type 1, Halloween is scary and oh my gosh, everything's got to change. It says, how do I do this? And then I have actually found, if I could talk about me for a minute, the hardest part for Halloween for us has always been my well-meaning neighbors, because I have a daughter who's 3 years older than Benny, and since the time they were very little, we did Halloween just like you guys did. We get all the candy, we put most of it away, even without diabetes. You're going to throw half that candy away or give it to the troops or to the dentist or whatever. So my neighbors, bless their hearts, those first couple years, they would say, here's a Hershey bar for Leah, and here's a sugar-free hard candy for Benny. And be like, oh, right? And I'm not letting my 2-year-old eat a hard candy anyway. But
Right.
Yeah. And some of them did have little prizes. I mean, I have one neighbor who always has a little toy for him, like, a penny toy or something. So cute and so nice. And I never said to people, at the door on Halloween, no, thank you, we're not taking that sugar-free candy. But, maybe a couple of weeks later when you're seeing them at the grocery store or elsewhere, you can kind of work it into the conversation. But I always tell parents, just go. And like you said, you're walking so much half the time that they go low when they're out there, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, when I said I walked 3 miles at night, my hometown was only a mile long. Do you know what I mean? Like, not really big, but we walked so much and for so many hours that my parents encouraged me to have that chocolate bar because they knew I really needed it. And I wasn't, when I was little, to treat a low, we would eat an orange. My mom didn't even bother cutting and wrapping an orange in tin foil. She said, oh, no, she's going to have a Reese's peanut butter cup when she's walking around because she's going to need it. But like you, I still get asked, can you eat this? Is this okay? And I always tell people, like, there's not too much I can't eat. I don't eat liver. I won't eat liver.
I'm sorry.
So
not even with onions?
That's it.
Not even chopped liver?
No, I don't like it. And, I know that I probably should like it because I run a little bit on the anemic side. I have my whole life, but I can't stand liver. But, yeah, I'm like, the only thing I can't eat is liver. Everything else is game on. So, and like you said, like, diabetes or not, you divide the candy up and somehow it disappears in the next few weeks because nobody, functioning pancreas or not, should be eating all of that candy. You just can't. Nobody can. Adult, child with diabetes, adult diabetes, anybody. People, it's just too much sugar. But, I'm sure you talk to your neighbors and tell them something similar because I don't know. It's really great to have people thinking and looking out for your kids. But sometimes what they're trying to do, like for me personally, I think there's a lot of damage with the sugar alcohol, like gastrointestinally, not damage, but side effects.
Ugh, it's gross. But I always try to, and what I try to tell other parents, like the way I handle it is just, you don't say, don't do this. You say, please do that. You say, oh, wasn't Halloween fun? Hey, we're trying something new this year, or maybe a couple of weeks before, my doctor says, even if your doctor never says, my doctor says that it'll be really fun and easier for Benny if he just gets all the regular candy and then we figure it out at home because, the sugar alcohols aren't good for him, or, it's just better to have the real stuff. But thanks so much. So just nothing special, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks at Halloween. And that way nobody feels bad. You're not saying, hey, you bought us that candy and we never ate it and it made him poop for 3 days. You're not doing that.
Right. Because you know what? It's expensive too. That's the thing. Like, here people are really looking out for you and your child and spending more money than they should for a very little bit of candy because it's, a sugar-free chocolate bar or whatever.
Gross.
And it's expensive.
So I'm thinking here, we're talking about trick-or-treating, we're talking about all the costumes and everything, but it's been 40 years, if you don't mind me asking you to reflect on that a little bit. Some things with diabetes never change. I imagine some things have changed quite a bit. Your bathroom probably doesn't look like a laboratory with those test tubes. Are you doing any reflection this year?
I am, but so much has been going on in our world lately. Like, I really wanted to do it up right for my 40th. And so much has happened over the summer and in the fall around our world with the elements and things like that. Last night and yesterday I was working all day at a fundraiser for Puerto Rico that I haven't really gotten it together to have this huge celebration I wanted to have. And 5 years ago, when it was my 35th, I was smack dab in the middle of Hurricane Sandy.
Oh, right.
Oh, my God. Where I lived was hit very hard from Sandy. So, again, everything sort of went to the wayside. So I think I'm going to do something for the year as far as reflecting, because it's not just going to be about the day. A year of reflection and bringing it into the 41st year. I mean, quite honestly, when I was little, I didn't necessarily think a person could live 40 years with diabetes. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Like that. I don't think as a child you don't think that far.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're just very immediate in the now for the most part, because that's what childhood is. It's the now. But yeah, I mean, I look back and I can't believe it. I can't believe it's been 40 years. I can't believe all the changes. I can't believe I started with this journey with people who aren't here anymore in my family, and that makes me sad. But I try and live and be positive for them. So that's good. I mean, I just want it to be a good year, and I want it to be a great life. And, we take the good and the bad, right? The vinegar with the sweet.
Yeah.
So there are days I get annoyed with diabetes. Don't get me wrong, but I really try and focus on the positive, because if I let it bring me down every day, then what kind of life is that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's not going anywhere. So I like to say some days I'm in charge, other days diabetes is in charge. Like some days we're both kind of like co-executives of Kelly Kunik. You know what I mean? Yeah, there are days where I'm the CEO, and there are days when diabetes is nipping its heels and trying at my, like, no, I want to be in charge. But I try and work with it as much as I can. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to hate it. There are moments when I dislike it intensely, but I don't want to hate myself. I can open up any magazine and that tells me I'm not tall enough, not skinny enough, not busty enough. That's really easy. If I hated my diabetes, then I would be hating me. And I don't need that. I'm awesome.
You are awesome. But I have to ask you before we wrap up here, tell me about your blog, because I always mess it up. Diabetesaliciousness. Okay. So where does that come from? And I love it.
Okay, first of all, I'm such a dork. It was supposed to be called Diabetesalicious. Now, when I started blogging, which will be 10 years in November.
Oh, great.
Go figure that one out. I had no idea what blogging was. Okay? None. It just looked like a Word file, and I could do a Word file. I couldn't create a website, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah.
And Blogger was essentially a fancy Word file, right? That you could upload pictures to. And there was always this thing I'd say, oh, that's so diabetesalicious. Like if I went surfing and I got out of the water and my blood sugar was like 125, so I didn't go too low, I was like, oh, that's diabetesalicious. Or if I went out to dinner and I had a big dessert, or maybe it was dinner at an Italian restaurant, which is always a bit of a challenge for me, pasta-wise, and I checked my blood sugar a couple hours later and it was like 170, I was like, oh, that's diabetesalicious. I nailed it. So it was always kind of a goal. Diabetesalicious was always a goal to achieve. It was always just hitting the norm in my life, doing my normal everyday things, but celebrating it, Again, if I ate a pasta dinner and 2 hours later I was 175, that's like nirvana. You know what I mean?
Oh, yes.
Totally nirvana. It was diabetesalicious. And so I started to fill out the blog information that I wanted to do. And at the end, right before I hit enter, I put the NESS, so made it Diabetesaliciousness. I changed it because let's make it more difficult to say and pronounce and spell. Why not? Again, I had no idea what I was doing. The only blog I'd ever read was Perez Hilton, and I didn't even know it was a blog. I thought it was a gossip website. And
it's hard to imagine, right? But in 2007, we weren't even on Facebook. I mean, it was so different. I mean,
it was so different, and now I can't change it. And I even changed it on the business cards I had printed up. I actually put Diabetesalicious, and people are like, what? So it's Diabetesaliciousness. Like Diabetesalicious, NESS. Or you could just say Diabetesalicious. I mean, I know it's a bitch to spell. It's my own fault. I shouldn't have done it. But it was 2007. I didn't know what I was doing. The interwebs was a new and exciting place. I didn't know there was a diabetes online community.
Yeah.
Seriously. I had no clue.
Why did you start then? Like what made you jump in?
I had left a long-term relationship. And I'd left a career, and believe it or not, I wanted to sell insulin pumps, right? Because I really felt like I had been pumping since 2002. I come from a family of sales reps and performers. It's basically like there's no doctors or lawyers in my family. We're all like salesmen and performers or teachers. And I was always the example that doctors would use. Like, you got to meet this patient. She's doing really well. My doctors would have me talk to teens, and parents would stop me when they would see my insulin pump at the drugstore and have me talk to their children. And I thought, I really felt like insulin pumping changed my life. And I thought, well, I want to sell these things. And I sent my resumes out, and nobody would talk to me. Nobody. And I had a marketing background and a writing background where I had worked for several local newspapers and magazines, and I was a writer. And someone had mentioned blogging or personal journaling. And I thought, oh, okay. And then, of course, there was the whole, like, a celebrity said they weaned themselves off insulin, and I got really mad at that particular celebrity. And I started this blog and then didn't know what I was doing. And I ended up calling this celebrity's publicist in the LA and New York office. And I think I frightened the gatekeepers so much at both offices that the publicist ended up calling me back. And we played phone tag, and I ended up speaking with the publicist and saying, look, I think so-and-so was misdiagnosed. And if this Oscar award-winning person can be misdiagnosed, then how many other people can be misdiagnosed? And I really do think that's the case. But I was also upset because I knew of several young women with diabulimia whose parents had mentioned this particular celebrity as someone to aspire to. You know, she has type 1 diabetes, and look how great she's doing. And when I tell you, I used to have parents come out of the woodwork, and still do, to talk about their children to me.
Wow.
I mentioned that to the publicist. I said, look, I don't know if you're aware, there's this thing called diabulimia, and it's very dangerous, and it's detrimental to health. Mostly it's women, young girls, and women with type 1 diabetes. But, you know, I know that young boys and men are also, and it's anybody can have it. You know what I mean? And so there has to be a better way to articulate this. And I really think if she came out with a statement, and again, I'm not blaming this particular celebrity. I think that's on the onus of the publicist. And she just wouldn't budge, and it got me so angry. And I think that was my first blog post. And I didn't know what I was doing. I just used it as a writing exercise every day on a subject that I knew intimately. And nobody read it except my friends. And I can tell you who the first person to leave a comment was, Bernard Farrell. And that was like 2.5 months after I started blogging. And I didn't know that this community existed. And when I found it, it was pretty life-changing. So I'm very lucky, you know, but I had no idea what I was doing. I certainly wouldn't have made it such a crazy name.
I think it's great now.
Like, I had no idea. I just knew it was this great outlet for me to get all my feelings out. And I didn't even realize how badly I needed that until I started doing it.
Yeah.
And I learned so much.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Let's circle back to Halloween, because there's so much we can talk about. And Kelly, I'll have to have you back on. But let's circle back to Halloween because, you know, you were talking about food and food issues, and everybody has food issues anyway. And then if you have diabetes, it's more food issues on top of food issues. So if you're talking to people who want to trick or treat, or parents of kids and they're worried about this holiday, any last advice here on just kind of keeping it fun and making it as normal as it can be?
Look, Halloween is a great holiday. It's really fun. It's an imaginative holiday. Roll with the imagination part of it. If you have more than one child, the rules apply for all. You know what I mean? You can have a little candy while we're trick-or-treating. You can have a chocolate bar, whatever. And a lot of, you know, we have our check stations, right? Check our blood sugars. If you're on a Dex, it's a little easier, right? On a Dexcom. So that makes it a little easier. And really enjoy the moment. And don't dread it. And if you're going to dread it, don't dread it in front of your kids. especially your kids with diabetes, like, don't do that to them, because they can't necessarily differentiate that you're dreading the diabetes aspect of it, and they're going to internalize it and take it personally. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
It's just like children don't understand when you're upset at the number on the meter screen. They think you're upset at them. Okay? So what happens? They find ways to change the number. Mm-hmm. I did. And, I went and checked my blood sugar with wet hands so the number would be lower. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, kids can't tell the difference. Whether they're 10 or 5, they can't tell the difference that you're mad or you're upset, I should say. You're upset at the number on the screen. They think you're upset at them. They are diabetes. You know what I mean?
I do.
They're diabetes.
Yeah, they are the diabetes.
And I think it's so important for parents to know, at least I think it is, that you got to put your game face on. You can say, oh, I'm going to be up checking all night. This is crazy. Don't say it in front of your kids. Don't say it in front of your kids.
Just do it.
Just do it. Like, honestly, that's not fair. And I know parents, they go through a lot with this disease. I saw what my parents went through, and they didn't have the technology, nor did they have the support of a community. I don't know how they survived. But you got to keep your game face on. You got to make it fun. You have to make it fun. And just do what you have to do. And let your kids take part in it. Say, look, could you do me a favor? Could you check your blood sugar? Like, let them participate. What's the carb on that? Do we know the carb? Here, it's on my phone. Look up my list. Like, something like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Where, kids, they like to help. And, they have to know this stuff, too.
Oh, yeah. So what are you doing for Halloween? Do you still get dressed up? Do you?
I did. Last year I went as Abby from NCIS, which was really fun. It's a great costume. I've done that a couple years in a row because it's just so much fun to wear. I don't know what I'm doing this year. And again, because I've been so focused on what's been going on in our world and healthcare and things like that, and the hurricanes, I haven't had a chance to focus. I'm hoping I can get together with friends, at least. And then we kick off into World Diabetes Day, and it's a really big whirlwind for me. I hope to do something fun this year, and I haven't been thinking about it because there's been so much leading up to this where I'm living. Like I said, it's the 5-year anniversary of Sandy is on the 26th, I want to say. No. And there's still parts of my town where, like, people are trying to get back in their homes. So the past few years, it's been a little bit, my focus has been split, which is good because it's not all about me, even though it totally should be.
Well, let me make it about you, because we're airing this show, as we're talking here a little bit earlier but we're airing the show on your 40th Diaversary. So from all of my listeners to you, we're sending you a gift. Now, congratulations. Thank you so much. Well, I'm going to put this all over social media, and at least we can give you a big Halloween congratulations and way to go and everything else, because it should not go unnoticed. I just think you're wonderful, Kelly. You do so much good for our community. You're always so much fun to talk to. I hope you have a great Halloween.
Well, I hope you do too, and thank you so much. I will have a glass of Prosecco for sure, and I will toast it your way, and I will toast it to everyone in the DOC, because honestly, I can say it's the best medicine, and I'm so grateful to be part of it. And you do such a phenomenal job, and you're so fun, and the DOC is amazing, and I really feel like sometimes when nobody else gets it, I just know that I can turn to my community, and you guys get it. And I don't even have to utter the D word to just be like, hey, guys, I need your vibes. And I get it. So I appreciate it so much. And I love everyone. And I love what you do. So keep up the great work. And hopefully we can all have a little celebration together soon. Thank you for doing this show, though. I think it's going to be wonderful and help a lot of people, and as all your shows do.
Well, thank you.
And you rock.
You're listening to Diabetes Connections with Stacey Sims.
More information about Kelly, you got to go read her blog if you're not familiar with it. And say it slowly, Diabetesaliciousness. She's just a force to be reckoned with. I am such a fan, and I'm thrilled I did get to speak to her. We also didn't talk about, I wish people knew that diabetes. So I'm going to link up that in the show notes as well. And that's an effort that Kelly started a couple of years ago and really took off on social media. It helps people who don't have type 1 or don't have diabetes kind of understand more about the day-to-day life of it. So, I wish people knew that diabetes is the hashtag. And then she encourages people with diabetes to send in their stories and their perspectives. So we'll have her back on and talk more about that. But I wanted to let you know. And I hope Kelly's having a great Halloween. Man, she deserves it. 40 years with type 1. And thanks, Kelly. I really appreciate it. Okay, Shop Talk today. Shop Talk is for everybody who can't get to a diabetes conference. Most people, can't go. And these conferences have, amazing speakers and great learning opportunities. But they also have cool exhibitors where you can learn about products and stuff that's on the market and stuff that may come to market. And I wanted to bring some of that to you. So I started this Shop Talk segment. This week, you're going to hear from two different companies, Myabetic and Pocket Innerwear. Myabetic makes purses, handbags, man bags, kid bags that look nice for your diabetes gear. So I won't get in their way, let's have Gretchen Otte from Myabetic explain. So tell me what Myabetic is. I'm looking at a lot of cool bags.
Yeah, so Myabetic is a fashionable diabetes. We sell fashionable diabetes cases. So basically, we make cool bags to put your supplies in, and we have a whole variety of bags depending on what you like to carry with you. It varies in sizes, colors, styles. So really, we're just trying to mix it up and make it stylish and not something to be shameful of. When you pull out that black nylon bag, you want something kind of a little more exciting to look at when you're testing and everything.
Yeah, you leave the hospital and you have this yucky bag.
Exactly. I used to carry around, the typical black nylon bag that you'd always get, and it just didn't fit all the things that I wanted. I personally use an insulin pen, and it doesn't fit that insulin pen. It's just there, and then I just have my meter. And so when I, started working for Myabetic, that's when I found a bag that fits my insulin pen and fits everything that I need in one case. And not to mention that it's also, I can put it out on a table and it doesn't even look like a diabetes case. It looks like a wallet or a cute purse. And no one would ever know that's diabetes supplies. So that made me feel so much better. Just bring it out and not be shameful of it. And I can use it and bring it everywhere with me. And yeah.
What is your favorite? Because there's all different colors and patterns.
There is. So I personally, since I have insulin pens, so there's certain ones that are great for insulin pens, but my favorite, I personally use the Banting Diabetes wallet in the Paradise Blue because that's my favorite color. It's like a Tiffany blue. I love that one. I also carry around with me the Marie Diabetes Mini Crossbody. That is a really cool purse that has all your diabetes supplies in, but also has a built-in wallet and a phone pocket. So when you're going out in the town for the night, you have everything in one spot, and it's not big and bulky. You don't have to bring all this stuff with you. It's all just in a simple little purse.
And you're going through the names kind of quickly. Are they all named after somebody?
Yeah, they're all named by specific people. For example, the Banting Diabetes Wallet, after Frederick Banting, who came up with insulin. So each one is named after a specific person that has done something in the diabetes community to, help us all. So, yeah.
Very cool. Do you have man bags?
We do, yes. We do have man bags. A lot of guys love our Thompson Diabetes Travel Carry-All, and they came in diabetes case. They're just kind of something more professional, that guys can carry around with them. Or we have something just simple that they can put in their jacket pocket or in their suit pocket, and they can just carry it with them and on the daily.
What's it like working for a company that has helped you as a person with diabetes?
Oh, I love it. So previously I worked, in typical jobs, and I have diabetes, so I would hide behind my desk and check my blood sugar and just like pretend like it's nothing and no one knew I had it. As opposed now I work at Myabetic, and actually 3 out of the 4 of us in the office have diabetes. So we're all like checking our blood sugars like it's no big deal, and my Dexcom alert comes on, and like they're like, oh, do you need like some sugar? And so we're just really supportive of each other, and yeah, we just kind of help each other. It's like our own little therapy group while we're like working. So it's awesome.
Myabetic gear is available in Target, but you can go to their website and really find out a lot more variety there, and I will link that up in the show notes, of course. And my next Shop Talk guest is Katie Larsen, and she is with Pocket Innerwear. You'll learn how they got their start, and it has to do with the Miss America pageant. So here is Katie Larsen.
Pocket Innerwear is a whole line of clothing that's developed to make wearing a pump easier, or make managing type 1 diabetes just a little bit easier. All of our pieces have a built-in pump pocket.
How did you come up with the idea?
Well, we started out in cell phones, and then we realized when we saw the need that we could do something better, we could kind of serve a higher purpose. And so we switched gears from cell phones to insulin pumps.
Was there a moment when you saw, did you know somebody with type 1, or were you at a conference? How did you, because not everybody thinks of type 1.
Yeah, there was a moment. I'm from Idaho, and when Sierra Sanderson won the title in 2014, and we saw her wear her pump on stage, I realized that our pocket was perfect for that. So we redesigned a little bit, and we ran with it.
What's your most popular pocket?
Our original tank for women is like our personal favorite, but really we sell a heck of a lot of men's and boys' underwear with pump pockets. That seems to be the most popular and bestseller.
I can see why.
So, yeah. And it's weird because men have pockets, whereas a lot of times women don't, and that's part of the issue we're trying to solve, is little girls that just wear leggings or want to wear a skirt or a dress and those kind of things. Those are the real problems we want to solve, so a little girl never has to say, I can't, because she wears a pump. We just want them to have freedom.
Do they fit any type pump, any size?
They do. Yep.
Like stretchy?
Yep. And, a lot of people will come and say, I don't wear a pump. I have an Omnipod, or I still on shots. Well, the pumps serve a lot of purposes. They can put their receiver for their Dexcom, or a little kid that has to carry the iPhone because of their diabetes. All those kinds of things, glucose tablets, all those kind of things can fit in our pockets too. They're cute. They're fun. We want it to be fun and take the burden off. And that's really our mission, make life easier.
More info on Pocket Innerwear in the show notes. How about that? Men's underwear is the big seller. I really would have thought it was something for the girls. But Gretchen and Katie, thanks so much for coming on to talk to me. Myabetic and Pocket Innerwear helping make diabetes a little less frumpy. A little bit less onerous to carry around with us wherever we go. Busy month ahead. As you know, it's Diabetes Awareness Month, and there is so much going on in our community. As I said, it's going to be business as usual pretty much around here. I'm really excited. The next couple of weeks, we have some great episodes planned. I am going to be talking to the folks from Animus. I have a planned interview with them. So if all goes well, in the next week or two, you will be hearing about, what happened and where do we go from here with them. I'm also urging you, if you want to make sure not to miss that, to subscribe to the show. Subscribing to Diabetes Connections on Apple Podcast app or wherever you listen, a lot of different apps for Android. Subscribing means you will get it as soon as it's there. You don't have to wait around. You don't have to download it separately from social media. It just shows up on your phone or your mobile device, as they say. You can also get the app. We have a Diabetes Connection standalone app if you prefer that, which may be easier if you have Android and you don't want to mess with a podcast app. You can just use mine. And I like that app. So many reasons. You can message me right from it. You can instantly share the episode by texting it to anybody you like. And sharing this by word of mouth is really helping the show grow. You are amazing as you listen. I appreciate you so much, but it's been really nice. So thank you very much for that. I'd also urge you, join the Facebook group. Just started that. It's already really a lot of fun. A little bit of behind the scenes stuff. So very easy to find. Diabetes Connections, the group on Facebook. Thanks as always to my editor, to John Buchanan over at Audio Editing Solutions. And thanks to you as you listen. I love spending this hour with you every week. It's so great to just spend some time with people who get it. I'm Stacey Sims, and I'll see you back here next week.
Diabetes Connections is a production of Stacey Sims Media. All rights reserved, all wrongs avenged.